Cabinet begins discussing the national budget for the year 2011 in its meetings and during working sessions of the Cabinet.
In its today's meeting, the members of the Cabinet held wide-ranging discussions on transition to program budgeting and the items to include in next year's budget. The President, in his radio address on Friday, 17 September, revealed that the government was following principles of program budgeting to formulate next year's budget. The Cabinet decided to hold working sessions next 3 days to discuss 2011 budget. In addition to the budget, the Cabinet also discussed its decision on 20th October 2009 to establish a small and medium enterprise SME bank to facilitate small and medium enterprises easy access to finance and capital. After discussing a paper presented by the Ministry of Economic Development on the matter, members recommended the President to incorporate activities of a SME bank in the postal banking system that is to be introduced soon.
President of the Elections Commission says local council elections cannot be held this year. In an interview with MNBC One, Fuad Tawfiq said that a date has not been set for the election and that a date will be set only after analyzing the situation.
One of the articles that the two main parties agreed on during negotiations on selected electorates was that the local council elections should be held before the 31st of December 2010. While the Constitution says that the local council elections can be held only after electorates have been finalized and published in the Government's Gazette, the Election Commission has set the date of the referendum on electorates as the 9th of October. Election Commission is supposed to hold the election within 75 days of finalizing electorates. The two-party negotiations decided that the last date for the government to publish the electorates in the Gazette in the 17th of October. While the Elections Commission will get exactly 75 days within the 17th of October and the 31st of December, the question that arises now is if it is feasible for the Elections Commission to host the elections. Answering this question, the President of the Elections Commission, Fuad Tawfiq, said that this is possible. Fuad said although the party negotiations set a certain duration within which elections should be held, a date has not been set for the election and that a date will be set only after analyzing the situation. Fuad said that the Commission is prepared for the election and that they have even rechecked the voters' registry. Training of personnel is also going on. An election based on a lot of electorates, the local council election will cost an estimated 62 million rupiah.
Land reclamation project begins in Hadal Kurdufushi. Under this project, 28.5 hectares of land are to be reclaimed. Though practical work began today, the official ceremony to inaugurate the project will be held tomorrow. According to the province office, the contractor of the project, Boskalis International, aims to complete the whole project within 2 weeks. Under the government's reclamation project, work has been carried out in 4 islands so far. Looking at international news, European leaders offer €1 billion at the Millennium Development Goals Summit amid mounting calls for money to pay for the battle to cut extreme poverty. The huge sum was offered late on Monday by the EU Commission President José Manuel Barroso at the end of the first day of a summit on the goals knocked off track by the international financial crisis.
World leaders addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Monday as Secretary General Ban Ki-moon reminded nations that their 10-year-old promise to lift the world's poorest from poverty remains unfulfilled. With world economies clawing back from the worst recession since World War II, world leaders implored delegates to once again turn their attention to global poverty. Diplomats from the 192 UN member states have already agreed on a document to be adopted this week by the leaders, spelling out specific actions to accelerate implementation of each of the 8 Millennium Development Goals known as the MDGs over the next 5 years. Nicolas Sarkozy, the French leader, was the first to accept Ban's challenge for nations to deliver more resources to combat global poverty, ignorance and misery. He pledged to boost France's annual $10 billion contributed to the world's poorest people by 20% over the next 3 years. He urged other leaders to join him. But leaders agreed that more is needed to meet their targets by the year 2015 deadline, which the UN say will be difficult if not possible in some cases. The three-day summit on the MDG goals will be followed by the annual ministerial meeting of the General Assembly, so leaders will be presenting positions not only on global anti-poverty plans but also on global issues. The UN acknowledges that even if the main target of reducing extreme poverty by half is achieved in the next 5 years, nearly 1 billion people still will be living on less than $1.25 a day.
A van carrying about 30 school children plunged 50 feet into a river in Pakistan-held Kashmir on Tuesday, killing at least 11 of them. Most of the remaining children are feared dead. The local police chief said authorities managed to save the driver and 4 injured children following the accident in Muzaffarabad, the capital of Pakistan-held Kashmir. They also recovered the bodies of 11 children. The rest are still missing. Rescue workers struggled to reach the van floating in the middle of the river to save any remaining children who may have survived. The accident occurred when the driver lost control of the van as he was driving along on an elevated road next to the Jhelum River. The Sri Lankan government's war probe visits the final battleground where the Tamil Tiger rebels were annihilated last year, but international media was barred from reporting proceedings.
The Lesson Learned and Reconciliation Commission LLRC visited the area in the island's north where Tiger chief Velupillai Prabhakaran was believed killed last year. The news alert service of the state-run Daily News said the 8-member panel cannot investigate war crimes, but it expected to focus on why a 2002 truce between the government and the ethnic Tamil rebels collapsed and led for more fighting. The Government Information Department said the panel over the weekend heard from Tamils in the district of Kilinochchi, where the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam LTTE maintained their political capital before they were crushed. International media are not granted free access to the former war zone. The BBC said it sought permission to cover the panel's work in the former war zone, but the Defence Ministry denied them access. The panel is led by the country's former Attorney General C.R. De Silva and consists of former government diplomats and public servants. Sri Lanka's top defence official, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, went before the panel shortly after it began work last month and defended the government's human rights record. He said 6,000 troops were killed and 30,000 wounded during the humanitarian mission to free ethnic Tamil civilians from the Tigers' grip last year and that there were no war crimes committed by troops. However, the United Nations has estimated at least 7,000 civilians were also killed in the first 4 months of fighting, while international rights groups say the figure could be as high as 30,000. Sri Lanka has rejected a separate UN probe into alleged rights abuses and resisted US-led calls for an independent international war crime investigation and instead appointed the LLRC.